it will be debatable. So anyway, it's an old joke. Like if so you don't accidentally call a woman Susan because you forgot her name the next morning. Only go out with women who are called Susan. You never have that problem. No, anyway, I want to talk about a phenomena that you see. One of the things about the Rona Chronicles is it was never going to really end because as soon as the needlecraft came along, the effects of the needlecraft would be forever. So the Rona Chronicles would always kind of exist in a kind of a post-mortem, debriefing kind of way. And so we all know about the fallout from the Boy I Say Boy and the Foghorn Leghorns and all that stuff, and the social, the personal, the other kind of fallouts, and people being very ill. The Telegraph rag, which is sort of like a middle class rag, a tabloid for middle class people, even admitted a study came out this week from Holland said there was a distinct correlation between needlecraft and increased mortality above natural numbers. This on top of a few things that have gone on. Dr. Fauci being grilled in the U.S. Congress, which was actually quite nice, quite pleasant to observe. And but I mean, I always say to myself, Tony Blair got away with it, they'll all get away with it. But most disturbing of all is the hearings. And fair play to Scotland, as soon as they got rid of that monster, Nicola Sturgeon, and the other monster, the racist, I can't even remember his name, the Pakistani guy who said there was too many whites in Scotland. Scotland seems to be redeeming itself at the public level anyway, with their hearings into the Rona, and it makes the most appalling watching. It basically like every single agenda during 2020 in Scotland among the NHS there, the health service, was to kill as many people as possible, so it wouldn't affect the dance rehearsals for the doctors and nurses. And I'm not putting down Scotland, that went down everywhere. It's just that the Scottish government, the Scottish in Scotland, the Scottish Parliament, the Scottish, whatever it's called up there, uh, pointed out what it is, pointing out, so fair play to them. At least we're getting something in Scotland. I have to give it Scotland a lot of, commendation for that. But it doesn't change the fact now that these things are happening. But now, like I always say, culture is the great mirror. Back to the alternative folklorist thing. Culture is the great mirror of the society. Now, you will have a situation where sort of like the folk, the ordinary people will know something, people like us in the tribe, where the experts haven't got a clue and they're baffled. Now, that happens in all kinds of things. Like, for instance, in 200 years ago, there was and it probably continues to the present. There was a festival in Northumbria among coal miners called sword dancing, where it was done at Christmas time, where they did it was kind of like an acrobatic dance type thing. It wasn't sword dancing like, Scottish sword dancing. They would use sticks that were flexible, and they would do these kinds of ritual dance that were quite spectacular to watch. And people would pay money, so it was actually in a professional thing. That it was a way for coal miners to make extra money over Christmas doing these sword dances around Northumbria. At the time, antiquarians hadn't got a clue what the origins of it was. Why does it suddenly manifest itself in Northumbria, in the north of England? Where did this come from? And the whole thing was the miners just came up with it while they were down the mines as a way to make extra money. Well, it wasn't until later on, till like we had like things like social and cultural and spiritual anthropology, the likes of, the Golden Bough and these kind, which cults in ancient Europe and all these books became very popular. The people seem to understand that, oh, these are remnants of ancient pagan times. And then someone had, and yet, even though at the historians and folklorists at the time of the Northumbrian sword dances were saying, why did he have this character called Puck and Bessie there? No, well, that's a giveaway. That's the pagans. But they didn't even think of that back then. It wasn't until much later on, until you had the likes of the Golden Brow and this study into cultural similarities going back to pre-Christian roots that appear everywhere, that people realized, oh, so the Northumbrian sword dancers are a throwback to a pagan festival of a Yuletide pagan festival of some kind. So that was that is about. So you see, it takes later on to figure out what's really going on. But if you went to certain people in North, so these experts who would come up from London and say, and he goes, it's remarkable. What is this now? These coal miners doing this sword dance at Christmas time, and and it's rather heathenistic, don't you think? What is it? What is? And if they had have really understood things, like Fraser kind of encapsulated all later on in the Golden Bough, that the appearance of Puck within these pageants was like it's a Yuletide festival. But there would have been locals who knew this. They would because of the class system, they were stroking the chins and going, fascinating. But they would never walk up to like, to a local Geordie or whatever, Northumbrian person, and they say like you know, ask him or her what this means. They would have told him, well, it goes back to very ancient times. So it would have been heathen after all. So I could tell be like Sid the Sexist, wouldn't it? Like walking up to them, and he goes, I can't do the accent right. I used to do a really good Geordie accent at one time. Titsoot. How man? How man? What the fuck are you talking about? What the fuck are you talking? It's a fucking pagan festival, you fucking twat. It's a fucking pagan festival, you fucking twat. Pardon me, what do you mean by twat? You are a fucking twat. That's what you're a fucking twat. Anyway, and you smell like a fucking hose knickerbox. Anyway, with your fucking get back down to fucking London, you fucking ponce. But yeah, so that's what they would have never asked the locals. They would have never asked them. Okay, so that still exists today in this world. So something I do late at night, which is probably not good for my mental health, is before I go to sleep, I go onto Instagram. Now, I actually kind of love Instagram because I love photographs, and I'm following lots of like photographers and artists and painters on Instagram and this kind of thing. And I love old steam train footage, so it's the steam train stuff and things like that, old canal footage and old historic footage of cities and stuff. So before I go to bed, I flick through them and the 40 and stuff, and I look for 40 videos that I can share with the Facebook Hocus Focus group to keep it interesting. And the numbers of videos coming up at the moment of people being hit by trains is absolutely staggering. And it's non-stop and endless. Now, we all know post-Rona, post-Needlecraft, post-Boy Foghorn Leghorn, that a lot of them now have spatial intelligence issues. They go to pick up something and their hands miss it. They go look at the roads, for Christ's sake. Look at the amount of car crashes. They've lost their ability to have spatial awareness. Well, if you want to see where that really happens, it's these snuff train movies. Now, a lot of these films start off and you see a train coming down and it looks like, that looks interesting. You know, some kind of interesting train going to come along. The next thing you know, some fucker walks on the tracks and gets mangled. And you're like, oh, Jesus, you know. But, you know, so in the interest of science, I started watching them. He says as an excuse, you fucking twat. And look, one of them was a big boy steam locomotive, this, you know, the American massive behemoth that were built by the Union Pacific back in the 1930s, the haul, you know, huge coal trains across the mountains, you know, into middle America. And over the mountains, the Cheyenne Mountains, you know, these huge, phenomenally gigantic steam locomotives pulling a mile of, you know, coal cars over, you know, the Cheyenne Pass and this kind of thing. And a couple of those locomotives, at least one has been preserved, and it goes on tours of America. It's like the Flying Scotsman in Britain, or like the Great Northern steam trains here, the blue ones. You know, when they come into a town, everybody wants to see the steam locomotive, and that's a big deal, you know. So the big boy was on a tour of America and showing up in some town in America. And so everyone runs out to go and see the big gigantic steam train coming along. And so I'm just watching this thing coming down the tracks, you know, this giant, you know, the smoke billowing out of it, you know, and the bell, ding, 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 ding. It's so ubiquitous in American trains. And there's all normies gathered around the tracks on the embankment. And they've all got their camera phones ready, you know, to film it. And one woman who looks like she's about 40, normal looking American lady, she doesn't look any way weird or anything. She jumps up beside near the tracks and gets her phone out like this, and she's doing this or something to the phone. And the next thing you know, the coupling rod from the locomotive's driving gear hits her on the head and knocks her out. It doesn't decapitate her, but it knocks her out. But that's instant death. That's, you know, you're talking about, you know, you're talking about like a 400-ton locomotive traveling at 70 miles an hour. Bang, right? So her husband is shaking her frantically on the ground to try and revive her. And all the NPCs and the normies just look and don't look back, and then they keep filming. Like they you know, pointless footage of the steam train that, you know, really when you think about it, just look at it, it's enough. But there's so many videos like that now. Now, of course, people think that the train, everybody knows that the train is wider than the rails. You know, the rails that the train runs on, right? If you live in a town that's where there's trains, or even standing, you know that that's why the platform is back from the tracks, right? There's an overhang of the locomotive and the rolling stock, right? But these videos, they don't seem to account for it now. So they're walking very close to the sleepers, or the ties, as Americans call them, the wooden ties, the concrete ties between the rails, to hold the rails together. And they get smacked by the buffer beam, or the side of the locomotive. And it's like, there's not just 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 of these videos, there's dozens of them. And they're all recent. And there's other things that people hanging out trains for selfies. You know, say in India. When I was in Sri Lanka, right, the trains, some of the local carriages don't have doors on the end because it's so hot. So it's to let air in. And so when the train was, when we went from the bottom of Sri Lanka all the way up to the Jaffna, to the north of Sri Lanka, you know, I was like a little boy, you know, like the combination of train spotting and the jungle and everything. And, you know, pulling into the middle of nowhere in the jungle and coming to a station where the station building was made from bamboo, and there was bananas growing off the trees, and there was palm trees, and there was monkeys running around and this kind of thing. So it was like, you know, it was just like just an amazing experience. So when the train would be coming close, I would hold on to the bars on either side of the doors and have a look as the train was going like 15 miles an hour as I was pulling in and out of the station, because I know how trains work, right? So, but there's so many videos of women hanging out of the train going woohoo for a selfie, and then boom, they're gone because they hit a signal pole or you know, something like that. And There's another one of a guy hanging out of the train, waving to the camera at the front. Like his friend is the camera at the front of the carriage, and at the back of the carriage, there's his friend is doing a selfie, waving out, hanging out the train like this. Well, there's some kind of like signaling equipment that's low down on the ground. It grabs him, catches him up on the train, and his legs and arms are off, and his head are all flying up in the air like this. You know, it's like the biggest cause of death for NPCs seems to be selfies right now. But so many of them are trains, and the reason is they don't seem to understand the spatial awareness that the train, that those telegraph poles or those signal poles or those electrical poles along the tracks, they're really not that far out from the train. In fact, if you should be paying attention to them, but they don't. They think it's going to miss them and it hits them. And there's tons of this stuff, tons of it. And there's loads of videos of people walking along the tracks like this with the train doing a selfie, and then boom, they're hit by the buffer, or they go under the fucking wheels, you know. And there was a story in California this week of a man who was hit by a train waiting for an Amtrak train. Amtrak is a passenger train company in America, and I think a freight train hit him while he was on the platform waiting. Now, the only way a freight train could hit you is if you're really close to the tracks, like that woman was hit on the head by the big boy. Anyway, he was smashed to bits, and a homeless person grabbed his leg, and it has been. I've seen the video. You can see it, and he walks down the street eating his severed leg. So the video has everything, you know, zombies, cannibalism, Rona, spatial awareness things, and this kind of thing. And it happened up here. It's in Sligo. A woman and her friend got off the station at Collooney or something, which is about 3 stations down from here. It's a single track line at that point, and it's not a fast line. The train's top speed go 50 miles an hour because it's a bit bendy and there's a couple of stations are close together. So her and her friend got on the track. The train driver sees them from about 500 yards away, frantically blows the horn to warn them. She casually looks back and like we're okay, and then bang, hits her because she's walking too close to the tracks. So I don't know what kind of augury is involved in this. You know, why it's always trains. I mean, God knows what it's like for traffic. But there's so many videos of people being hit by trains, and in every case you can see they misjudged the distance between where they were standing and where the locomotive begins. And that's not a difficult thing. Basically, the rule of thumb is stand a couple of feet back from the sleepers, or the ties as America calls them, and you'll be fine, unless something's sticking out of the train, like a hose or something that you're not expecting, or some idiot doing a selfie. Now, the social, commentators of the day will go, why so many people, being hit by trains, just like they did back in Northumbria with the sword dances. Why did the sword dances? And the guy goes, well, you fucking twat, it's obviously fucking going back to pagan times, you fucking douchebag. The local Geordie would say that. Well, we in the tribe would say, well, you twat, it's obviously needlecraft has destroyed their spatial awareness. So in years to come, if they ever figure this, admit it like they admit thalidomide or anything like that, they'll turn around and say it was spatial awareness, was their nervous system being damaged by the needlecraft. Which this is one thing. Forget, I know about myocarditis and I know about, turbo cancers. I know about all that stuff, right? But the one thing that I've noticed immediately, along with personality changes, was the problems with spatial awareness. And it's manifesting in trains. It's almost like I was talking to a friend who lives here, and they were saying that there's massive crematoriums and hospices being built all over Ireland, or existing hospices and crematoriums are all being massively expanded. It's almost like there is a death wish, a subconscious death wish, a kind of thing. But so these videos come up at night, and at first I saw them, I'm shocked. So I noticed common tropes with these things, and funny enough, they're things that I'm not particularly interested in. People being hit by trains, gigantic snakes, gigantic boas, constrictors like boas, anacondas, pythons. I mean, when I say big, I mean absolutely colossal, and they're real videos. And people being, if they don't have a train in the parts of the world where they have anacondas and boas, they're being eaten by them. So the choice is, that's what seems to be happening. So if you live in a place where there's anacondas or boas, they're getting eaten by them. If you live where there's trains, they're standing next to the track and getting hit. What that's about, I don't know. I don't know. But those videos are just non-stop now, everywhere. Now the augury thing there has to. Why are the pythons suddenly getting big enough to digest full human beings? Not just in, let's say, Brazil, but everywhere in them, in the ones that have been released from captivity in Florida, the ones in Australia, Malaysia, everywhere they become colossal. And now I was thinking to myself, well, were they always this size? And is it only because they all have cell phones now or mobile phone cameras that people are actually filming this stuff for the first time and realizing just how big they are? No, the people in these countries are saying they've never seen boas, anacondas, pythons grow as colossal as they are now. They're showing up not only in like the depths of the Amazon forests where loggers are finding them, but they're showing up in cities in Malaysia and Indonesia and places like that, and suburbs in Australian cities. Now, if I was to ask me as the alternative folklorist for this, like the alternative folklorist for the first thing hit by trains is needlecraft. All the crematoriums and hospices, needlecraft. Giant boas, needlecraft. Why? Same reason Irish cities and British cities are being invaded by large rats and foxes. Needlecraft. They're going to be eating the people. See us, bye.